Hey guys, and welcome back to Trekyards, where we're all things Star Trek, ships, and just Star Trek.
We're known
We
for
got
that,
ships
Stuart.
today. Yeah. Anyway, he's Commander Cockings.
He's Captain Foley, and we do our content as soon as the episode comes out. We're raring, and then these wonderful people behind the scenes release extra stuff. Doesn't always happen, but when it does, we're like, huh. We're back again, Eleosing, because a ton came out in between, including some actual solid data and renders that aren't defined by the harsh colour grading of accidental parent plus double LUT overly contrast. So we're going to look at the Eleos again, Stuart, in far more detail. So the first one, though, is Doug Drexler, who modelled the initial concept version. This is not what made it into the show, but we'll see the show one later. But this is mostly there. So here it is in clear view, Stuart, done by Doug, our friend Doug, our first guest on the channel, our longest running Trek alumni friend. We've both been to his house, etc. What do you think? Now you can see it in full detail.
It looks great. First of all, it's a high quality render, which looks fantastic. And a lot more detail than I remember. Even the stuff that Dave Blass released on Twitter. This one I can see like escape pods and things, which I don't believe are on the other one.
Certain things got removed, Stuart, from Doug's to final, and certain things got added.
That's weird.
That's why this is basically a concept version. I mean, these things aren't necessarily meant to be released.
It's nice. It looks really good. It looks really good. Like he got some scorch marks, like some hit marks, and some paint.
Which I definitely didn't
problems.
see in the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though, because I thought it was very clean in the episode, but having it feel like it got damaged over 2 decades potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Just weathering and stuff is great. And yeah, like those escape pods. I'm sure we'll look at the other one later, the official one. But just having those there is a big thing because they should have it.
Although they are very small, I would say, given we know how big the bridge is, escape pods tend to be bigger, I would say.
I would say so, yes, especially on the Sovereign and stuff, but it could be just smaller versions of them.
Yeah, of course they could be single-person pods, but then still, just, but, was the scale fully known when building the ship? Because the window scale, I mean, are they windows? Are they porthole? We see the windows that are windows, but are the side windows? Are they? Because if they are windows, then is that a deck on the top rim of that bit?
Well, it looks like the where the escape pods would be
Mm-hmm.
one deck, and then underneath it would be another deck. Kind of underneath the deflector would be another deck. That'd be my guess, but
yeah, it does. Now the blue, bluier than you thought.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Which I like, medical sciences. That's fine.
Can you tell we're a medical ship? Blue.
Yeah.
But the next shot again is Doug's approval model, the Underside, which we saw for a fraction of a second. And I remember your comment at the time was, not much going on. Let's move on. Here it is, more in clarity.
And still not much going on.
Underdeveloped?
Yeah, but I mean, for a small ship, you don't need anything there, really. Like, you don't need other escape pods underneath or anything. So.
Yeah. I probably would have assumed there would be landing legs. If I was going in and doing this myself, to be so flat implies to me it's a landing ship, and then you'd have like cargo bays on that have a ramp down. Like it would be very linked to full operation between planet to space to station. That would just be me if I was doing it.
Well, for delivering supplies and stuff, absolutely yes.
Yeah,
I would assume that something this small, because it's not a large ship, would be able to land.
But I definitely don't see that. But they didn't design the bottom necessarily beyond the basic stuff. So
yeah.
Again, concept model. But Stuart, then these were then released, which show off tech specs approved by the production, and then I did go ahead and just crop out some stuff to make them bigger for the audience because text is small to read. So here's the cropped versions. What do you think of the text as written?
Very interesting. Phoenix class, max speed warp 8.7, so not getting that warp 9, which I like. Rapid response, delivering medical supplies, engineering components, or limited personnel transfer.
And do you notice there's now no escape pods?
Yes. Yeah, because I remember looking at this when Dave Blass released it, and I was like, no escape pods kind of stood out to me a little bit. So,
but obviously, no phaser strips, no escape pods, no. There are other things. You associate the Enterprise E with little lines, and there's not really much of that. Which is why I understand why people's confusion was: is it an actually civilian ship? I know we said that as well, because if you took away the warp engines, which kind of vibed Starfleet, you could probably argue it was civilian. But the way it's kind of framed, there's too many Starfleet isms to imply it was a civilian ship that's been taken and converted from a Starfleet design. That was kind of what we both assumed, but its lack of visible things kind of leads you to believe it might not even be that.
The one thing that's interesting too is the warp governor, which is very similar to the one on the NX-01, which is a nice little touch.
And also it sort of pulls the design together. I know that Phoenix class is based on John's original sketch of the Phoenix class, which is what this is based on, and that has nothing in the middle, so it's very open. I think you said at the time it could be a very good tug, because why have that much open space? So adding the warp governor gives you that negative space you're filling. My only question then is if you look at the back shot, what are those? Why is there a warp blue on the warp governor, and why are there 2 warp blues below it? Now, we said this in another episode as well. Why are there so many blue things? Because they can't really be warp coils, because that would be odd. Or are they?
I mean, in the warp governor, I wouldn't have a problem with them being something like initial warp coils or whatever. But behind the bridge there on the saucer section, I'm not sure. It's just tricked out. It's to look cool.
And then also it notes that it's a Mariposan medical vessel, which is the Rios group that he created because of the alternate timeline. So is this ship a product of the alternate timeline? Did it exist beforehand? Or was it a predestination paradox, in which case it always happened because it always happened?
Just a coincidence.
Which things like Endgame prove can't or don't happen very often, because Endgame didn't happen the same both times. You had to have the first version to have the second version. Whereas this, you had to have both, which doesn't really connect.
Yeah. One thing that's never been explained to me anyway is the NAR instead of NCC.
There was one ship in TNG that had that, and it was civilian. If you were doing a civilian takeover, it wouldn't be necessarily the same registry and name, because now you're working for a different group. So you'd rebrand it with this group. And, clearly for hundreds of years, the idea of the 3 letters registry has been known across the galaxy. But also the length here at 119.7 meters, with the Defiant being around 160 in true CG scale. So it's a third smaller than Defiant. And therefore Nova's about the same size as the Defiant, obviously differently proportioned, but so you can think about a third smaller than Nova as well.
That makes sense to me, especially considering it says crew complement 2.
Well, that does refer to Beverly and Jack. That's
I know.
Hence just
I know. And you can see the bridge is just one big open square room, which is more
very
than a
relatable.
Bridge. Yeah, it's like a lab as well. Well, so yeah.
Although that might have been a separate space that she then just opened up as well.
Could be. Yeah.
Who's to say?
Personalized.
We know that it's somewhat based on the Raven from Voyager, because the view screen is basically just that view screen or that window space. So that was also a slightly differently configured room, slightly more basic, etc. There's also a slight call out here, which is, while not as tactically able as a Danube class runabout, the Phoenix was significantly faster and with a greater range and cargo capacity. So comparable to a runabout.
Well, that's what they say. Yeah, it's comparable to one, but with more cargo space. So
it's definitely, Defiant we associate being a smaller ship. This is a third smaller. At what point are you going to too small? So maybe most is that push that line of, well, we need space, but we're not going to go hollow ship with just a big rectangle. We're going to build an actual ship. But then, Stuart, something else released by Dave, the Proto Phoenix class, and look what's made a reappearance. Many things.
Gate pods, RCS thrusters, phaser emitters.
This is all on Dave Blaster's Twitter, so go retweet. What do you think, Stuart?
A nice earlier version for sure, and more of a Starfleety, because you got the phaser strips on there, and even the updated stats like crew complement 13. Got slower warp speeds because it doesn't have the improved engines of the later model. So that's nice.
The launch date is a thing that grabs me. 52.
2352.
So it was 49 years old the class was by the time of Picard.
That makes sense. I like that.
It's real freaking old.
Yeah.
Now I've got another graphic to show when that is in context, because we're going through a pattern. But yeah, you've got Enterprise D-esque phaser strips and escape pods and warp nacelles that look Raven-esque. Bulky. Is the red too much?
I think the red's fine. Makes sense for a command tactical thing going in. You can see this is kind of like a tactical strike thing. It's very small. It can get through defenses Does have 9 phaser emitters, so they're small, but that's fine.
I wonder if these would be sent to help support the blue versions, because if
Probably, yeah.
if they all got roughly the same ability set, but one has cargo capacity, one has weapons, then they'll be able to keep up. If you send a galaxy with these, there'll be a differential in purpose.
Yeah, kind of like a medical convoy, and these are the escorts. And kind of blend in, especially with like if somebody's scanning it, blend in. Yes, they got more phaser or more weapons emitters or whatever, but
so I would imagine that an escape pod is a reasonably beefy amount of internal volume, because it's not just a hatch; it's what's in the hatch. And phaser strips aren't the only thing that you need to make a phaser. So by having these things in the outer rim, you're removing most of the space. A lot of the space. So if you want to do a cargo version, you need that stuff to want to be removed to get the space, because you want cargo space, surely.
Yes, yeah, you would absolutely.
But do you think they all would have been armed this way, or just the more tactical versions? Would they have made an early TNG without weapons?
I don't think so, honestly. I think they would have all been the same, like cookie cutter kind of design. And then later, once they got older and sold off to civilian or whatever, then you'd take out the weapons emitters, make more room for cargo. And you don't want weapons emitters being handed to civilians necessarily, especially like the Starfleet military grade.
And I believe Dave did comment on somebody saying maybe she sold all the stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing, yeah.
Ethical is ethical, but selling, phaser strips, I'm sure some civilian colony will buy them, and then...
Let's sell our escape pods, because who needs those?
I mean, well, if you've got all of your possessions on the ship, you want to keep the ship in tow,
Yeah.
But if you need those medical supplies, Stuart,
yeah, I suppose
sometimes you got to sell some stuff. Now, this is a comparison, including when it's meant to be set, roughly. So, just for context, 2355, Battle of Maxia. So, it's actually pre-Stargazer. So, this was launched when they're wearing the pajamas, the Season 1 TNG-esque uniforms. Because this is, of course, we never saw technically that battle, but we saw Picard's memory delusion flashback, to which he showed these people in these uniforms, which tells us that's obviously what it was. So, that's a fair assumption. So, how does that feel then, to sort of put it in context? It's that old design-wise.
Yeah, it works perfectly. You could definitely see the ship and zoom in and get these people in the old style TNG uniforms. I think that would be perfectly fine. That was great.
Is it too sleek, or is it just because of the mission profile it did something different? Because I've seen that talked about a lot.
I don't think it's too sleek at all. I mean, you look at the ships that were being constructed around that time.
Like the New Orleans.
I think the Cerritos, so the California class, were designed around that time.
Gosh,
a little earlier than the Enterprise D, slightly, but they're moving into that next design phase. So yeah, I think it's perfectly acceptable that this would be one of the ones that were being built brand new at the time.
Because I'm looking at it. I mean, people say sleek, but if you look at the warp governor bit, it's just rectangles, right? If you look at the middle bit, it's a box. Where's the sleekness, right? It's only the outer edge that's sleek, and it's just because it's flat and it's not a big rim. But if you're going for a landing motif,
exactly,
then...
yeah, because atmospheric, it'll be going into
yeah. I mean, just that by itself, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and I know Rick's talked about you can adjust the shields to the aerodynamic, so you don't need an aerodynamic ship to go into the atmosphere necessarily, but it's still, I think, is a good idea to do this.
But maybe this is a ship that's sort of small and mass produced, that they don't necessarily they're not equipped with those kind of advanced things, and therefore you actually want a ship to go with the flow and be able to do all the different things. Because that makes sense to me. Yeah, it's designed for a really broad set of circumstances. So let's make it just that bit sleeker than otherwise.
And yeah, it works perfectly.
And yeah, seeing side by side, yeah, cruising was 4.6 to 7.2, and max was 6 to 8.7. Because it just reminds me that in Prodigy we just had a bit where there's the giant joke with the Cuda about Warp 6. He's proud, and Jankum laughs. So clearly, even by that point, Warp 6 for a civilian is high. Like that was a bragging point, right? And he's a smart guy, so you've got to add that into the context of Starfleet is pushing that tech further, but civilians don't necessarily get that right out of the line. So
I think it's a great little ship, and definitely good for the purposes that she has it for. And I do like that it was once part of the fleet and just kind of like, eventually phased out. And 50 years is pretty good.
And I mean, that's just to say this one made into the civilian branch. I mean, there's no, this sort of smaller ship, you'd assume they make many, especially for this many purposes. So they might reuse the model in later season. I would be content. I mean, come on, if Miranda's can last 100 years, this thing could be flying around very happily. I mean, certainly lower decks, it could appear. Prodigy, it could appear. I mean, if the teams talk,
Jeez.
You got it, All
right, guys, so comment down below what you think about this ship. What do you think about the earlier version? Does it fit in design-wise, aesthetic-wise? Let us know in the comment section down below. Please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to join us on a regular basis for lives and things. So clicking that bell icon to all is a good way to get reminded of the edited content like this, as well as the lives where we get to hang out with you guys.
And a double reminder that Dave Blass, the production designer of Picard, shared these and has shared stuff for the Shrike and the Ferengi Den. So much stuff. So go check him out on Twitter and Instagram. He's posting great stuff. I mean, ships tech, he loves it. So say thanks, say hi. It's worth doing. If you want to say thanks, that makes sense. Thanks, and to us, you can support us directly via Patreon. It's monthly. Join the channel, also monthly. There's some really fun perks and some ship positions you could walk away. No academy required. Just walk in. It's great.
Yeah, stay to the end of this video. You'll see the fleet.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No academy, but yes, wallet required. Or super chat in any of our lives during any of our ship discussions or character discussions or predictions, because that's really, really fun. Super chat any amount and we'll talk about the topic you pitch. If you suddenly want to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, throw us $5 and we are compelled to talk about whatever you want. It's a power you have and we love it. Or super thanks on any video. Occasionally you guys do. We absolutely love it. So thank you in advance and we look forward to see you next time.
So until then, he is Commander Cooking.
He's Captain Foley. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.